Daya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadeshatarine. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. I've been compiling a book about the life and transcendental activities and teachings of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which I started compiling, must have been in the winter of 1988-89, when I considered that the few remaining disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur who are still present would shortly be passing away, which almost all of them have done now, and that it would be a good idea to find them out where they're always staying and interview them about their personal memories of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Otherwise, their memories would be going with them. So I did that. I met the few of his disciples who were still present in the world at that time. Most of them didn't have much to say, actually, because most of those who were still alive at that time had been very young when they were initiated. Or even if they weren't so young, they weren't very senior in the mutt, so they didn't have many memories. But I eventually met this, those of you who have seen this Vangshidas Babaji book, those stories of Vangshidas Babaji I got actually when I was interviewing this Jyoti Shekhar Prabhu about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Then so many stories, so many things he told me. I got information from other sources also, but much from him. I visited his home several times over several years, and he wrote down. When I was away, he was trying to remember, then he wrote down. And then when I came, he had told me so many stories. And it was in the course of collecting materials for that Bhaktisiddhanta book that I came across this Vangshidas Babaji, because in the course of speaking about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he spoke about Vangshidas Babaji, who I remember I'd seen his name in our Vaishnava calendar, but that's the only thing I knew. So I said, "Do you know anything about him?" He said, "Yes." "Can you tell me?" "Yes." And then for several days he told me about Vangshidas Babaji. And he gave me a book he'd written in Oriya. And then he translated that into Bengali for me. And from that, we got some more details. So that was only a very small part of the many, many hours of anecdotes, which I was asking so many questions, and he would remember. And so we got so many stories. This Jyoti Shekhar, he joined the mutt when he was 16 years old. And then, so he was there for a few years before Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur passed away. So he got so many stories. What happened, he was living in Cuttack, which is a city in Orissa, the eastern part of India. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he mostly preached in Bengal and Orissa. He spent most of his time. He was born, he appeared in this world in Orissa, but in what is at least superficially a Bengali family. His father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, was from Bengal. So you'll find, just like Jyoti Shekhar Prabhu, his family had been settled for several generations in Orissa, but still at home they spoke Bengali. So like this Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, of course he didn't spend that much time as a child in Orissa, but he didn't know Oriya very well. He knew Bengali, English, Sanskrit, those languages. So he mostly preached in Bengal, and to some extent in Orissa, and he also visited other parts of India. He was mostly in these parts. So anyway, he had a mutt in the Satchidananda mutt in Cuttack, and Jyoti Shekhar Prabhu, as a young boy, he used to go and stay at night in the mat and then get up in the morning, go to Mangalarti, and then go to school. But some of the mat residents, they say, what is this? Why is he staying here at night? He's not doing any service here. So when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati came, they complained to him that you see this young boy, he's just coming and staying here at night and he goes away all day to his school. So then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati asked him, Saraswati Thakura, I'll say for short. Actually in the Gauriya Math they call Srila Prabhupada, but so as to avoid confusion, I'm saying like that. So Saraswati Thakura, he asked the young boy, Jyoti Shekhar, why are you coming like this? You're only staying at night? You're not doing any services. So I said, I'm going to school, but I live a little distance away. My family, father's home is a little distance away from the mud. But I want to attend Mangalarti because I heard that Phala Shruti is there, that if anyone in the early morning hours, Shri Gaurvashtakam Etaruchai, Brahma Muhurte Patati Prayatnat, Sa Eva Labhya, Hare Krishna, Shri Vrindavananatha Seva Sa Eva Labhya. So they will, if anyone who rises early in the Brahma Muhurta and chants this Gaurvashtakam, they will attain service to Vrindavanath, Krishna in Vrindavan. So I heard this, so this is what I want. I want to attain service to Krishna in Vrindavan. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, so you see, he's coming. He wants Krishna consciousness. So he allowed him. There are so many stories. I have one section here because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is famous for being very strict. Prabhupada, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada used to say that I am 80% more lenient than my Guru Maharaj. And actually that's at least 80% we can say, because they were very strict in the Gauriya Math. No one was allowed to wear shoes. Of course, there was no question of women living in the ashram. There were so many things. So he was very strict. Of course, he didn't all the time chastise, but his very personality was very grave and serious. So there was no scope in his presence for fooling around. His whole time was simply spent in hearing and chanting about Krishna and preaching. He used to spend a lot of time writing, actually. You see, he wrote so many articles. He did the whole commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, and Srimad Bhagavatam, and published many, many books. He edited many books of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and published them. In many books he got published translations from Sanskrit. He's a prolific writer. Apart from preaching, he did tremendous preaching. He spent a lot of time writing. And he considered anything else, apart from writing and preaching and full engagement in hearing and chanting, simply to be a waste of time. And he expected his disciples to follow that also. That in Puri, of course Puri is famous, people go there for darshan of Jagannath, prasad of Jagannath, and bathing in the sea. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said himself that anyone who takes bath in the sea here at Puri, they will get Krishna prema by the blessings of Haridas Thakur, who passed away at the edge of the sea, and whose body was bathed in the sea by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, one of his disciples came, and then Saraswati Thakur noticed that he was out of the mud for some time. So he asked, where were you? What were you doing? He said, I went to bathe at the sea. He said, why did you do that? He said, we come to Puri for bathing in the sea. That's why we come. He said, don't waste your time. You can go and put some drops on your water on your head. That's all. And otherwise you spend all your time hearing and chanting about Krishna. So you see, he was very strict. Our Prabhupada sometimes used to send his disciples, go and bathe in the sea. But he told them, don't bathe in the sea. Just spend all your time hearing and chanting about Krishna. So I collected a few anecdotes of his strictness. That's a well-known quality. Of course, he was very kind also. As Jati Shekhar Prabhu noted to me, that if he was not very kind, then how could he gathered around him so many disciples? Well, most of his disciples were Bengalis. Maybe you heard that Prabhupada told Vishnu Maharaj that you should preach with the courage of an Englishman and the heart of a Bengali mother. So to date, of course, generally, mothers are expected to be very kind to their children. Although it's not necessarily true in the modern age, where there are so many abortions and horrible things. But Bengali mothers especially are very attached to their sons and very affectionate. So Jati Shekhar Prabhu pointed out that if Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, if he hadn't been very affectionate to his disciples, how could they have stayed? Because at home they would get overwhelming affection. But he was strict also. So both things. He would sometimes chastise his disciples very strongly, even for a small discrepancy, minor discrepancy. But his disciples, they used to like it. They used to consider it very nice. They would say that two things are very sweet. Two things are very nice. Prabhupada dal, that means his dal remnants, his prasadam remnants. And Prabhupada gal. Gal means chastisement. Gully, you know that word? To give some, it actually means calling bad names. So, our Prabhupada, I'll say that so there's no confusion. He used to say that our Guru Maharaj used to call us all bad names, stupid, fool, damn rascal, nonsense. But we used to like it. He considered it a sign of his affection. Prabhupada himself told that once he was in a meeting with, that means Saraswati Thakur was sitting and speaking, and in the meeting, one old man who was sitting next to Prabhupada, who was at that time, Abhaida, called his attention and he went to listen, and immediately Saraswati Thakur chastised. Why are you speaking while I'm speaking? He said to the old man, do you think you have purchased me with your 100 rupees month donation? You can do whatever you like. And Abhaida said, maybe you should come and speak instead of me. Chastise. He didn't always chastise, often just by his presence. The devotees, they would become chastened. Just by, you can imagine that he may be... Actually, there was a lot of tension in the Gauriya Math towards the last days. In the beginning, they were very enthusiastic and doing a lot of preaching and taking a lot of austerities, but gradually buildings came, positions came, and there was some arguing among the different followers, and there were basically two factions. One faction who were under... Anyway, I won't say the names. You can get them in the book. There were two factions who they didn't like each other at all. But in the presence of Saraswati Thakur, they felt among themselves they had some bad feelings. But in his presence, they wouldn't argue and fight. Often he used to, complaints would come to him and they would say, this devotee is doing this wrong, he's doing that wrong. And he would simply say, Sheta khara balana. That is not good. Doing that is not good. And simply that, in many cases, would be sufficient. Devotees, they had such respect for him. Once in Dhaka, that's now the capital of Bangladesh, at that time it was all part of British India, there was one Tribhuvan Brahmachari. who wasn't much of a brahmachari. He used to sleep every morning, very late, until about 7 o'clock. So, when Saraswati Thakur came to Dhaka, he visited there several times. Most of his leading disciples came from East Bengal. Even most of his disciples overall came from East Bengal, rather than West Bengal. So, some of the householder devotees complain. They say, you see, we're supporting, giving donations, and this brahmachari is simply sleeping all morning, missing all the morning sadhana. But Saraswati Thakur didn't say anything. But Tribhuvan Brahmachari changed anyway, because he was expecting it. Now I'm going to get chastised. But just Saraswati Thakur said to the household, well, he may do that, but you don't do that. And Tribhuvan Brahmachari changed his habit. If someone used to complain, often complaints would come to him about this devotee did this, that devotee did that. So often he wouldn't, he didn't like to get involved actually. Even the whole management of the mat, he kept aloof. He just he was doing his preaching, hearing and chanting. He left the management to a large extent in the hands of Kunja Bihari, one of his disciples. But if someone were to come and complain, he would say that, oh, he's unfortunate because he's done wrong. He's very unfortunate. But you are also unfortunate because you got involved in it. Why you complain? Once he wrote to a disciple, a disciple wrote to him with so many complaints about other disciples. So Saraswati Thakur replied, he sent a letter in reply that one, in Chaitanya Bhagavad it is stated that one goes to hell by criticizing others. My instruction to you, he wrote in the letter, is not to criticize others, but to correct and purify yourself. I have taken the position as a guru, and therefore it is my duty to criticize my disciples and those who come to me for guidance. But I don't know why you are taking such trouble upon yourself to voluntarily take up such a task. The Gaudiya Math had its own prison. They used to call it the Mamgachi Math. That's one. Mamgachi is a place within Navadvip Mandal, which is the place of Vrindavan Das Thakur, said to have been born or lived there. So he was the last disciple of Nityananda Prabhu. So that was a place to go to get some special mercy. Those who were the Matavasis, or the devotees who were living in the mat, if they were repeatedly misbehaved, they would get sent there. And there it was just a rural area, so they had a big garden and they would work in the garden. They'd be sent there to do some hard physical labor. So it became known as the prison, the jail. Actually the word jail was given. I don't know what's written here, prison. Jail. So they'd have to work taking care of the cows and the gardens. Once someone came to Saraswati Thakur, one respectable gentleman, and he said, there are so many insincere devotees in your mission. Why do you allow them? The Saraswati Thakur said, well, they may be insincere, but this is the only place where they have any hope of purification. You want to send them out, then what chance do they have? If they're here, at least they have some chance. Then he wrote one article that was published in the Gaudiya called Gaudiya Hospital. He compared his mat, that means his just like we say temple. He compared that to the hospital. This is the hospital. He said, if you come to the hospital and you complain, everybody is here is sick. Well, of course they're sick. It's a hospital. What do you expect? But at least they're here, and they have the chance to become purified. At least they're taking the course for purification. Oh yeah, that story about bathing in the sea, I forgot to say that. Saraswati Thakura, he actually, when that one devotee came from bathing in the sea, he actually gave him a slap. He didn't usually do that, but occasionally he did. Once sometimes if he saw the devotees that were sleeping in class, it's not a new phenomenon. He would chastise them. Stand up. Don't wash your face. Why are you embarrassing me here? My Guru Maharaj is here. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is here. All the acharyas are here. And you are in their presence, you are sleeping. You are insulting them. At the Chaitanya Mat, which was the main mat he had in Mayapur, he made Radha Kund. Means he made a pond and said this is non-different from Radha Kund in Mathura district. And he also had Giri Govardhan like this. So once one brahmachari was sleeping during class, he told, take him, throw him in the Radha Kund. My guru, all the acharyas, I've invited them here. But if they see you sleeping, they'll all go away. So don't embarrass them. Once Saraswati Thakur was instructing Harinam Amrita Bekaram, the Jiva Goswami's Krishna conscious Sanskrit grammar. One Kirtan Brahmachari, his name was, he was falling asleep. So Saraswati Thakur had the rod which you use for pointing out on the board, this and that. He's pointing out on the board, he's from sleep. Hit him on the head with that. These are a few stories, anecdotes. Of course, you can say these are small stories, but everything that all points out the character of the Acharya. That in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked Krishna, Stita pragyasya ka bhasha samadhi sthasya keshava stitadhi king prabhashita kimasita vrajeta kim. How does the self-realized person speak? What does he say? How does he act? How does he sit? How does he walk? So by hearing about the character of the Acharyas, we see what is the position of a person in transcendence. Again in Cuttack, during the winter, it's cold, not like here, but fairly cold. People sleep indoors with the windows closed and they use some blankets. So, one problem is that they had the garden and the tendency is for people to steal. They'll come and steal the fruit and the flowers and so many things. So one Jagannath Brahmachari, he used to stay outside in the winter. There was just, in the garden there was a small thatched, not exactly a cottage, but open on one side, so he could, if anyone came, he could hear, he would see them, and cover with a thatch. So you can imagine in winter it's quite cold. So he used to sleep out there in the winter without blankets, which is not so easy to do. It's quite an austerity. But he was quite proud of that. He would say, you see, I'm such a brahmachari, I can sleep outside in the winter without blankets. So Saraswati Thakur, he heard this, he said, now you go inside. At night you stay inside and wear warm clothes. He ordered him. You're boasting that you're so great. Someone else will go and do it. It doesn't have to be you. Someone else can sleep outside. But Jagannath Brahmachari said, no one else can do it. I'm the only one who can do it. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that, do a little proofreading here. Don't want the book to be published with mistakes. Is it? Hare Krishna. Is that better? Yeah. So he said that you're saying that they want to stay inside the house and that you're better, but that is, they may be attached to staying in the warm and you may be attached to staying outside. They have their disease, you have your disease. You're both attached. But they're not boasting that I'm staying inside. You are boasting I'm staying outside. And then after that, he went and stayed inside and someone else stayed outside. He was thinking, I'm so good, no one else can do it. Once at the Bagbazar temple, that's a very big, opulent temple in Calcutta. Then the rule is, you see, they have the deities, and in front of that there's an area where you can come up the steps. The deities are in a higher area. You have to come up the steps to take darshan. And then in front of that, there's a little space, and then there's a covered pavilion like this. So the kirtan and everything will go on in that covered pavilion, which is called Nat Mandir. That means a place for dancing. So there's just a small place where people want to go close to take darshan of the deities. So Saraswati Thakura, once he was there, he was offering obeisances in front of the deities, when one man from outside, he came and he just stood where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was offering obeisances. He was just standing next to them. So that means he was standing with his feet close to Saraswati Thakur's head. So immediately Saraswati Thakur's disciples came and pulled him out and made a big fuss. What are you doing? You're putting your feet, you're standing right next to our Guru's head. How can you do that? So they chastised him, but then Saraswati Thakur chastised them. Why are you chastising him? That he's not living in the ashram, he doesn't know all the rules. Why are you discouraging him? Why are you shouting at him? Any one of you could have gone and personally and politely told him that you please come and stand to the side. And you are insulting him. So he chastised his disciples for chastising the man for making an offense to him. Now once Jyoti Shekhar Prabhu, he was a young boy at this time. You see, they used to do big festivals in different places, like you're doing here. Mostly in the different mats they'd do. They'd celebrate different festivals like Govardhan Puja, Janmashtami, and apart from these regular festivals on the Vaishnava calendar, they'd have each temple would have its own festival each year. So these festivals, one of the main activities was mass prasad distribution to the public. Here we do festivals, it's mostly for our own devotees, but in India, a temple festival means that all the public is invited. Of course, if you invited the public here, you'd have to, just like Indrajumna Maharaj, you have to be a different kind of festival altogether. So this is more an internal festival, but in India, a temple festival means that you always have to invite the public and give them plenty of, everyone should be fed as much as possible. So they had, for these festivals, they had cooking paraphernalia, but they would transport it from one place to another. Huge pots, big spoons. So instead of having all this in one center and then only maybe use it once or twice a year, they'd take it from place to place by train. So Jyoti Shekhar, he was in charge. He was a young boy, but he was put in charge of transporting some of that cooking paraphernalia. So he had so much in the train, but the train stops for maybe 5 minutes, and he thought, well, I'll get it out all myself. He could have hired coolie or a... What do you call that in English? English, a coolie. He could have hired a helper. Porter. Porter is the word, yeah. He could have hired a porter to help him, but he thought, I'll take it out myself, save money. So while he was taking it out all himself, the train went, with half of it still inside. So Saraswati Thakura, when he heard this, he said, penny wise, pound foolish. You had to... That's an idiomatic saying. It means that you saved a few pennies, but you lost a few... You lost so many pounds. Another time, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he was coming to the station to catch he would travel by train from place to place. Mostly by train. At least in the places where the trains went. So he sent Jyoti Shekhar ahead to keep some space, make some space in the waiting room. But when Saraswati Thakura came, he said, Jyoti Shekhar said, you see, I saved a place for you. He said, look, he says, it's the ladies' waiting room. He was so excited, he didn't check to see. But Saraswati Thakura was very... he had a lot of... Because Jyoti Shekhar, as a young boy, he was eager to serve, so he gave him different services to do, and he sometimes made mistakes, but he was very merciful with him. Once they were traveling by train to Kobur in South India, which is the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met with Ramananda Rai. So generally Saraswati Thakura, he would travel in the first class compartment. After the admission got established and he was recognized as an acharya and there was plenty of income was there. He would travel first class and with one or two other devotees, and the rest of the party, they would go in the second class. So while they're traveling, it's a long journey. It's probably about 1 day's journey. In the middle of the journey, Saraswati Thakura came to visit the devotees in the second class compartment. So he looked at Jyoti Shekhar and he said, Shri Shanga Karcho, you're associating with women. He admonished him. Jyoti Shekhar looked around. I don't see any. Where are the women? He said, you're sitting with your back. You're resting your back. You're taking some comfort. So that is the same as associating with women. He said. Very strict. This comfort, the word is aram. And there's another word, haram, which means abominable. So he said, this aram, this is haram. Can you follow that? The sadhus, comfort, is so strict. Often when traveling on the train, you see, just like if they're going from Calcutta to Khavur, they go through all Orissa. And Saraswati Thakura would have disciples in different cities where the train would stop. So in many stations they would arrange, the train would just stop for 10 minutes, and in the meantime they'd have a whole big kirtan, and devotees would come and they'd give garlands. So like this, they would be going along, and in each station there'd be some devotees welcoming them. He'd come out and he'd give them blessings, and he'd come back again. Sometimes he used to even give initiation on the train. Some people would ask, they would write some letter and say that, I want to be your disciple, and he'd give the address. So he said, well, you meet me at this station, this is the station, I'll be going through there, you come up on the train, and then between this station and the next station, bring the beads and I'll chant and then you go. So like that. Time management. Where did you get initiated? Somewhere between Kathak and Puri. course, you all probably know the story of Prabhupada told that Saraswati Thakura, he was there once in Mayapur, and there was a big poisonous snake came out, and devotees were wondering what to do, because normally you kill a poisonous snake comes, you kill it. That's generally what's done in Bengal. In other parts of India maybe not, but in Bengal that's the general thing. But as Vaishnavas, they weren't sure what to do. Then Saraswati Thakura heard, oh, there's a little screaming and this and that. He heard, he came out on the first floor veranda, and he saw the snake. And he immediately said, kill it. So Prabhupada was Abhaida at that time, because he was a householder, so he was surprised. And there was some doubt in his mind that why would Guru Maharaj tell to kill a snake when a Vaishnava he's supposed to be Adveshta Sarva Bhutana Maitra Karuna Evacha. He's supposed to be without malice to any living being, a friend to all and merciful to all. So there was some doubt in his mind. Doubt means he didn't doubt Saraswati Thakura's position as Paramahamsa Vaishnava, but he doubted how is it possible that our Guru Maharaj could have said that. He didn't understand. Prabhupada, this is how he related it. But then in the course of studying Bhagavatam, he came across the statement by, I believe it's by Prahlad Maharaj, that he was saying in relationship with his father, Hiranyakashipu. So his father had been killed, and Prahlad, the son, would think that he'd be upset that my father has been killed, but actually he was very happy. So he gave the explanation that Modeta Sadhurapi Sarpa Vrishchika Apihatya. That even a saintly person becomes pleased when becomes happy when he sees a snake or a scorpion killed. So then when Prabhupada read that, he said, oh, and he remembered, long time ago I saw, my Guru Maharaj ordered, the snake should be killed. So this is, here it's mentioned in Shastra, that even a saintly, a sadhu, he's pleased when a snake is killed. Once Jyoti Shekhar, he was to go outside with one sannyasi for collecting alms. Bhikha. So he asked Saraswati Thakura, because he looked up to him like a father figure. He was father's age. He said that Maharaj is going to go outside with me. Is it all right? Saraswati Thakura said, what do you mean he will go outside with you? You will go outside with him. In this way he corrected him. One of Saraswati Thakura's disciples from Orissa was called Krishna Babu. Now, he had some anti-Bengali feeling. Just like in Croatia they have anti-Serbian feeling. Some people have it more than others. And even some of the devotees may have it. Is it? We're supposed to be transcendental to these things, but still it goes on. Just like in India, I would say most of our devotees have to some extent some anti-Muslim feeling. So he had this, Krishna Babu had this anti-Bengali feeling. So Saraswati Thakura said to him that if you go in the jungle in Orissa, do you think the tigers in the jungle will say, oh, he's an Oriya. We're also Oriyas. We will not eat him. They'll also eat you. Do you think the tiger will embrace you? This is how he addressed his anti-Bengali feeling. Once at a festival at the Bagh Bazaar, Gauriya Math, one householder devotee came with his family. So until recently, and especially in those days, come with his family means at least 10 or 12 members. So one brahmachari said to him, you see, when we came for collection, you gave so little, and now at the time of prasadam, you're going to take so much. What is this? And Saraswati Thakur said, don't count how many people he's brought. Don't think how much he's given. Don't worry about that. Let everyone come and take prasad. Saraswati Thakur, he understood this household devotee. He didn't have much money. But he thought, he explained that many people may give donations, but they may not come. Because they're rich, as a matter of a pious activity, they give some donation. But they're not so interested. They'll come and join the festival and take prasad. So Saraswati Thakur said, the person who comes and honors prasad, even if they don't give a donation, they are more fortunate than those who give a donation and don't come to honor prasad. So I'm not saying you should take advantage here, but this is what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said. However, Saraswati Thakur didn't like that those living outside the mat would come to take prasad just to fill their bellies for free. He was very particular. Anyone who came to the mat, they should be given some prasadam. Everyone who comes, they shouldn't leave without taking some prasad. But he didn't like that householder devotees should come and without doing any service or without giving any donation, they'll regularly come and take prasad. He used to say that you should not eat prasad. Prasad should eat you. That means you see, eat and enjoy, that's the same word in Bengali or Sanskrit. So it's like a play on words. So you should not, you should make a note of that too. That prasad, Krishna prasad, you should not eat that, but Krishna, He will enjoy. You are not the enjoyer, you are the enjoyed. Again, the same thing when there was one wealthy man. He was again and again asking for rasgullas. Give me more, give me more, give me more. So Saraswati Thakur said to him, are you eating prasad or is the prasad eating you? Prasad is the bhukta. You are the enjoyer. You are the bhogya. That which is to be enjoyed. There was one Gauriya Math sannyasi who was always preaching to others. You have to chant attentively. When you do japa, you have to chant attentively. So Saraswati Thakur once commented that he himself doesn't hear properly when chanting, but he's preaching to others. In other words, that he's preaching for his own, himself is not on that level, but he's preaching for his own purification. At one time, Saraswati Thakur noted that the sannyasis, he made over 20 sannyasis. The exact number is difficult to ascertain. There are different lists. But at one time at the Gaur Purnima festival in 1929, he called together the sannyasis and chastised them that you're spending so much money on your personal expenses. He said that anything you collect, that should be deposited with the mat. And then anything you need, that will be given to you, not that you take directly. He said, otherwise, if you take that, I've done so much collection, therefore I deserve so much myself personally. He said, the day will come when the pujaris will open the collection box and use it to buy coconut oil for their wives' hair. Because in Bengal they usually put oil in their hair and scented oil, and then it's supposed to look nice and smell nice. So he said the time will come, if you start doing this, sannyasis, that you take money for your own personal enjoyment, the time will come when the pujaris will take money out and use it for oil for their wives' hair. There was another time, there was one Bodhayan Maharaj, who he was very good in collection, but Saraswati Thakur didn't like his collection techniques very much. There's one community in India, the Marwari community, who are famous as merchants, and in many parts of India they dominate the whole business community. So in Cuttack at that time, still now, most of the shops in the center of the city were owned by Marwaris. So they become very wealthy, but one of the reasons they become wealthy is that they're not only expert in business, but they're also expert in avoiding paying taxes. So one time Bodhayan Maharaj, he went to the income tax officer of Cuttack and proposed to him that you come with me and we'll visit the Marwaris and we'll make some collection for our mat. In other words, that if he was present, then the Marwaris would feel threatened into giving more donations. So the income tax officer refused. He said, well, that's not very proper. So Bodhayan Maharaj said, well, you see, I come all the way from the mat. So at least, why don't you let me use your car to go back to the mat? So he agreed. So Bodhayan Maharaj, he went back to the mat in the income tax officer's car, where the sign was there, income tax inspector. So on the way to the mat, he took a bit of a diversion through the bazaar and stopped and went to all the Marwari shops with the income tax officer's car. So they felt that this man's in with it was like a threat. So he told them so many things that, you see, we have 300 brahmacharis and you have to give so many dhotis and so many. So he came with a huge collection of so many items and money and so many things. And he stood outside the gate of the mat and he called out, Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Ashtotar Sri Srimad Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. He said it very loudly 3 times. Saraswati Thakur was staying there at the time. So he asked, what's going on? Bodhayan Maharaj, he knew him. He said, what's going on? He said, he showed, Bodhayan Maharaj said, he showed so many things that he had collected. But actually Saraswati Thakur, he wasn't pleased. He said, this is not sattvic. And he showed one other Puri Maharaj who had gone out on the same day. Just by going door to door, showing his uttariya. This is the uttariya. He'd collected some rice, some dal, some lemon, some potatoes, a few coins like this. He said, this bhikha, this collection, this is sattvic. Gaurasundar will accept this. So he told Bodhayan Maharaj, you go back and you take all those things back. I don't know. There were several Puri Maharajas. Not either of the Puri Maharajas were common, because not both of them took sannyas after long. There was Bhakti Swarup Puri Maharaj and Bhakti Sri Rup Puri Maharaj. But I asked Dhoti Shekhar and he himself couldn't remember. He just remembered it was Puri Maharaj. I think it must have been Sri Rup, because he was always said he was a very humble soul like that. And it's a little confusing because one of them took sannyas And then he went back to his wife. Prabhupada mentions it. And then he came again, and Saraswati Thakur gave him sannyas again, with another name. There are many things, because there are many points. I've been researching this for a long time, but there are many things which you have to find out. All these old Gauriya magazines and search for them and read them, and they're all in Bengali. There are many little details like this. And it's a lifetime project to go through it. We get so many details. There was one Sri Bhushan Brahmachari who was very clean. He used to take bath at least 5 times a day. He was always washing his legs. If he'd walk anywhere a little bit dirty, he'd make sure he washed his legs and everything. Whenever he went outside the mat, he'd make sure to wash his feet, his lower legs. He was very particular about keeping very clean. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told him that bathing is not our dharma. Chanting the holy name is our dharma. Don't waste your life in constantly taking bath. Keep life simple and make time for chanting the holy name. Don't spend so much time for bodily maintenance. Bathing the body is required, but not excessively. And he sent him to be a pujari. If you like to be clean, that's good. Be a pujari. It's suitable for you. Once when Saraswati Thakur came to the mutt in Madras, South India, he found it all dirty and disorganized and all the devotees fighting among themselves. He sent everyone home. Go home. Go home to your mothers. He brought new devotees. He said, you're not fit. You're unfit for brahmachari lives. You go home and live life as an honest household. He completely restocked the mat with different men. Once one of his disciples, Gunamani, he asked Saraswati Thakur that you please speak some Harikatha. So Saraswati Thakur replied, Gunamani, ami gai tumi shun. I'll speak, but are you going to listen? In other words, Gunamani, the way he was asking, it was like demanding, now you speak. He didn't appreciate that. Once there was a yatra group. Yatra means they do religious dramas. It's more entertainment, but it's kind of religious. It's one kind of profession to perform yatra. So one group came to Malaysia in Orissa, where Saraswati Thakur was staying at the time, and asked him to attend their performance. They're going to make a play about Nimai Sannyas, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas. But Saraswati Thakur told them, said, we don't want Yatra Chaitanya. We want real Chaitanya. He directly told them. In Cuttack, there was a pond in the temple which they used for washing the deity's paraphernalia, washing the pots after cooking. But in Orissa and Bengal, as you may know, people are very fond of eating fish. So they would often come to catch fish in the pond. Saraswati Thakur, he didn't like that. It was bad. One man was regularly coming to catch fish. Saraswati Thakur told him, don't take fish from this pond. This pond is non-different from the Yamuna. The man didn't care. He kept on coming. Then one time while he was fishing, he was bitten by a snake and died. Another time, one advocate came to see Saraswati Thakur, came to visit him, and while he was in the middle of speaking, he lit up one cigarette. And Saraswati Thakur asked him not to, but anyway he went on smoking. And Saraswati Thakura requested him 3 times, you please don't smoke, but he went on. Then after some days he got cholera and died. So be careful. Once that means that Krishna doesn't tolerate offenses to his devotees. Especially very powerful devotees, we have to be very careful. Once in 1930, there's the magazine of the Gauriya Math. They had several magazines, 5 or 6, English, Hindi, Assamese, Oriya, Bengali. They had the daily Nadia Prakash, daily newspaper. They also had the weekly, or was it 2 weekly, fortnightly, Gauriya, one magazine, in which many of Saraswati Thakur's lectures were printed and many of his important essays have appeared. So many of his essays. He would write so many. So once that came, one article called A Report of Service, and in that he exposed the improper behavior of some of the Gauriya Math members who their names were put there, prominent members, and then one time the Gauriya came out and they saw our name is here in the magazine, which was distributed to all the Math members and even to the public, and saying we've done this wrong and that wrong. They're very upset. They came to Saraswati Thakur, they didn't blame him, they said, why has the editor published this? So Saraswati Thakur said that if we are criticized for our wrong activities, if we are actually behaving wrongly in the guise of sadhus, then no one will appreciate that. They won't excuse us. They'll be unhappy with that. I'll also be blamed. Therefore, it was right to publish this article so that there may be reform. He gave the example, if there is no power in the powerhouse, then there's no use. You may have thousands of light bulbs connected to it, but there'll be no light. So similarly, we may have so many followers and a big institution and so many buildings, but if there's no purity, then it's all completely useless. This was the example he gave. There has to be power in the powerhouse. He often used to say that devotees, they have to be a living source. That they actually have to have Krishna consciousness. Then you can give Krishna consciousness to others. So there are many articles he wrote. One was called Mahant Guru or Guru Giri. It means a real powerful guru. And Guru Giri means guruship. That means Guru Giri. It means the practice of being a guru. Guruship. Like fellowship. No. Guruship. It means making a show of being guru. So like this, he was very exacting about what Krishna consciousness means. He fought his whole life. He was fighting with the wrong sampradaya, the bogus cheaters in the name of Vaishnavism. But within his institution also, he didn't want his own followers to be like that. He was fighting with the sahajiyas on the outside, and he said that if our own men, if they become sahajiyas, they're more dangerous. Because we're supposed to be representing the right thing, and if our own men, they become cheap and cheaters, then that is more dangerous. He wrote so many things pointing out the defects in Vaishnava society at that time. This Prakrita Rash Shatadushami, he wrote again and again in explaining what is incorrect. If you try to If a guru tries to instruct an unqualified disciple in the science of rasa, that is incorrect. Or if a disciple who's not qualified for that tries to understand or hear the science of rasa, that is also incorrect. So many points he made it. On and on and on. He was known as the Lion Guru, one of the leaders of the Indian independence movement, called him the Singha Guru, just like a lion. This Indian independence movement, he also, that was very powerful and strong, you can imagine, just like recently there was this war between Croatia and Serbia. Croatia and Serbia, and then there are Muslims in Bosnia. It's a little complex, but you can just imagine at that time, you must remember that, right? It's only a few years ago. You can just imagine during that time, if you tried to preach that this fighting against the Serbians, it's all useless, waste of time. Can you imagine? How would the public receive it? Would they think it would be very good? Would they agree with you? They'd probably kill you too, isn't it? They'd say you're a Serbian spy or something like that. So in the same way, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was preaching during the time when the Indian independence movement was very strong. They wanted to kick the British, quit India. Gandhi told the British. That was his whole message for the British in 2 words. This is our message to you, quit India. No more negotiations, this, that, get out. That was Gandhi's message. During this time, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he didn't sympathize with the Indian independence movement. He said it's a waste of time. We don't mind the British being here. I have no complaint. They don't disturb us. Why should we disturb them? So this very naturally very much angered the leaders of the Indian independence movement. They didn't like him at all. But this Chittaranjan Das, he appreciated. And there was another one, Madan Mohan Malavia, who was a prominent leader of the Indian independence movement, who also had great appreciation for Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He used to sometimes visit him in Calcutta. And after meeting him one time, he said that we need 1,000 sannyasis and brahmacharis like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to preach the real principle of independence throughout India. Which Saraswati Thakur was saying, he said that political adjustments, it doesn't make any difference. Our real business is to get free, not from the oppression of the British, but from the oppression of the senses, from the oppression of birth, death, old age and disease. And practically we see that after India's so-called independence, instead of the British exploiting the Indians, there were other Indians exploiting the Indians. It just changed from white faces to brown faces. So Madan Mohan Malavia, one time he came to Calcutta. He was an intellectual. He founded the Benares Hindu University. So he asked Saraswati Thakur, he said, I have some questions for you. So Saraswati Thakur told him, you go and ask the pujaris. He said, no, I don't think your disciples can answer this. You yourself, I have some very complex questions on Vedanta I want to ask you. And if you at all have any idea about Vedanta philosophy, you can understand they can be very complex questions based on Sanskrit grammatical usages and so many different things. So Saraswati Thakur said, no, anyway you go and ask the pujari. Generally, pujari means that there may not be the more educated devotees, they'll be in the editorial department or preaching. I went to see the pujari. So Madan Mohan Malavia, he was a big man, but he was submissive enough to that he followed his direction. So he went to see the pujaris and said, I have some questions for you. At that time the pujaris, they were cleaning the brass paraphernalia. They said, we're cleaning the brass now. You kindly help us and then afterwards. So he helped. big man, famous man, he was helping cleaning the brass, finished cleaning the brass, and without asking any questions, he went back to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who then asked him that, well, did you get the answer to your questions? He said, yes. He said, while I was cleaning the brass, all the answers came in my mind. Saraswati Thakura said, yes, this is the process. Sevon mukhe hi jivado swayameva spuratiyada. Simply by intellectualism, you cannot understand the absolute truth. But by service attitude, he reveals himself to you. There are many, many stories. Once there was one older woman who was rather cantankerous. That's the word I was told. Do you know what that means? It means argumentative and irritable, not very pleasant. Always used to fight with everybody like this. So then she passed away. And then after she passed away, everyone was saying how they were remembering how she used to fight with everybody. Saraswati Thakura heard them and said that, yes, but do you remember how she used to cook for everyone? She used to do so much service. You didn't complain of that. So in this way he corrected them to see the good points. Another time one man came to join the mud and they gave him service cleaning the pots. So he used to scrub very hard, work very hard and get them very clean. The devotees said to Saraswati Thakura, you see this man, he's scrubbing the pots so nicely, he's doing such nice service. Saraswati Thakura said, we shall see. We shall see. He didn't seem to be very impressed. So after a few days, that man's wife came and took him back home. So then he was serving so nicely, and then when his wife came, he immediately left. Why is that? Saraswati Thakura said that, see, he'd argued with his wife. And he came to the mat as a show to her. He was very angry. That's why he was scrubbing the pot so hard. And he was just waiting for his wife to come and say, please come back. He was just waiting for them. Then he left. That was his threat. If you don't submit to me, I'm going to become a sadhu. So he had no interest in Bhakti. It was just between him and his wife. Still he did service. Okay, I only have 13 minutes. Supposed to finish at 12. So, Hare Krishna. Are there any questions?
We hear about many stories about Bhaktisiddhanta. How strict he was. And
that's Croatian? You're speaking Croatian also?
And Prabhupada said...
Do you want to start asking the question again?
Okay.
We hear how strict Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura was, and we also hear how Prabhupada... Well, this is a kind of multi-tiered question. One is, how much can we implement the things that he was talking about, like, no shoes. When he gave a class, he made that there was some partition, the ladies with
right. Well, that was standard. There was a bamboo,
right?
Partition between the men and the women. But that was standard in all religious assemblies or any public assembly at the time. It wasn't super strict, but it was just everyone used to do that. That was the culture. The men didn't come for looking at the women or vice versa.
Now, Prabhupada
and actually not wearing shoes. I mean, when I first came to India,
not one thing.
But I'm just saying, it's not that it was. In many ways, we think it's very strict, but almost no one wearing shoes wasn't common actually. In 75 in Bengal, most people didn't wear shoes. It's only when they made the factories and they started making the mass-produced rubber shoes. And even now in South India, some high-class people, they don't wear shoes just as a matter of principle. So we have to see it within the cultural context also.
So here's the lower tier part of the question. As we see that Prabhupada, he said that, he was 80% lenient or tolerant compared to his Guru Maharaj in dealing with us. And I think we could, I think everyone would agree that most of the present gurus in ISKCON are even more lenient than Prabhupada, maybe another 80%, whatever. So, if we give it time, we see it going down. The strictness, and of course nowadays the cultural, we're preaching in the West, we see there's a different cultural context. Whereas the partitions and the no shoes were present in Bengal 100 years ago or 80 years ago, whatever. And nowadays, Prabhupada had to make quite a lot of adjustments when he came to America. And nowadays we see that there's even, the standards since the 60s and 70s has also gone down. So where's the end of that? And how do we balance all these things? And
it's a very big question, and different individuals will have different approaches in answering that. What will be the end if we go on making it more and more liberal? The end will be going to hell. The end will be going to hell, that's all. Well, I've considered this question very deeply, and because I've compiled, or I guess we're talking about 80%, more than 80% through compiling a book on Vaishnava culture, etiquette and behavior, which is supposed to be a practical guide on what devotees are supposed to do. So I've taken it the other way, actually. That rather that be more liberal than Prabhupada, we should take it that Prabhupada was introducing something, but actually he wanted that devotees would adopt more and more the stricter standards, or the standards of Indian culture. So I've taken it the other way. And the more we preach the proper standard and strictness, or the higher you set the level, then the higher you can expect those who are coming in to follow. If you set a very high standard, they may come. If you put the bar here, they may come in here. But if you put it here, they'll come here. So that's really the duty of acharyas, actually. Acharya means, what is that verse? Achinoti yashastratam acharya stapyati api swayam acharate yasmad acharyastena kirtita. Acharya means one who preaches according to Shastra, acts according to Shastra, and establishes the standards of Shastra. So in the book that I'm writing, I've taken that the Shastra, there are so many different things mentioned, but we particularly have to follow. There's a whole section on pramans. How have I arrived at what I'm putting in this book? Because even Prabhupada said different things at different times. So I've taken it that our basic standard is what Prabhupada gave, because he is the Acharya who has established that this is how we should follow. But we have to see, in the beginning Prabhupada was extremely liberal, and gradually he introduced more rules, and some of the things he allowed in the beginning he was more strict with later. But he also said that he wanted devotees to learn more of the Indian culture, and he wanted devotees to come to India to learn more about those things. So the approach that I've given is that I've given many of the different rules, said that maybe in the West we can't follow all these immediately, but some can start to follow it, and at least those who are supposed to be Brahmins, they should start to follow it. Definitely the rules of cleanliness and contamination, which devotees in the West, they have very little knowledge of, the pujaris at least should start to follow them. And then gradually we can start the Brahmins are supposed to be leaders of society, so those who are actually want to be Brahmins, it's not just a matter of having a string on your body. And it's not even a matter of knowing Shastra, but you're also supposed to know Achar, what is proper behavior, so they can start to implement that, which at the moment I see, actually even in India, the present generation, outside of Bengal and Orissa, they don't know even very basic things. You have to teach them everything, practically like in the West. So that's my approach, that we should aim for a high standard. Why should we go for lower and lower? Aim for a high standard. And then even we're talking about making an expanded Vaishnava society. So in that, the Brahmins we will expect will follow more strictly, and others less strictly. But what I've seen, even in Bengal, those who are called Namashudras, which means those who are by caste, by birth, lower than Shudras, they follow many things which we in the West don't even know. Points of cleanliness and how they behave with others. So we have a lot to learn, and it's very important. It's not that sometimes I hear people say, this is all karma kanda. Whoever says this has no idea what karma kanda is. These are rules followed by all sections of society, and they're necessary. Just like this point of purity and contamination. You see people, they put their hand in their mouth, and then they put their hands in it to chant japa, and they put their hands in their mouth, and then they go on the altar without washing their hands, and so many things. They're combing their hair and then they put it on top of their Bhagavad Gita, or they just leave the Bhagavad Gita, the comb down and on the table, and so many things. So many things. They don't know. They have no conscience. It's a matter of conscientiousness. First you have to learn. So anyway, I'm hoping this book will have some effect, because it's actually required. We have to serve Krishna according to his standards. That's the point. Krishna consciousness means doing what Krishna wants. So at a lower level, we can do what we can manage, and somehow or other worship Krishna. But the real thing is to do it according to Vaikuntha's standard. That's what we should aim for, isn't it? We should aim at doing how Krishna wants it, not what we can kind of half do. That's not Krishna's standard. So it's a very delicate question actually, because even in different parts, even among different Vaishnavas, you'll see they have different standards for doing different things. But as I also wrote in the introduction to the book, actually this is, defining standards is something which, whenever there's a new sampradaya, of course there are no new sampradayas, but there are acharyas come to establish standards, or they come to establish sampradaya. Just like when Ramanuja came, then he gave, these are the rules and regulations we should follow. When Madhva came, he gave the rules and regulations. So at some point in time, for our international society for Krishna consciousness, it has to be itemized that this is what should be done, this is what should be done, this is how it should be done. So this book I'm doing is a beginning, at least saying at least giving some indication, this should be done, this should not be done, on many different points. It's a big question, and there will definitely be differences of opinion about it. But as you're asking my opinion, then I think it's, at least from what I'm told, it's fairly well known that I'm not much in favor of liberalism, which is often an excuse for just not being very serious, actually. Liberal means we can, in the beginning, yes, come. But after some time, if you want Krishna, then you have to learn to know what Krishna wants us to do and do that.